Afternoon. Welcome to Let's Talk, where we bring insightful conversations on important issues facing our community. I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, for those who are joining for the first time. I'm so glad to have you with us today. And, I can't tell if we're going to have a reprieve from the heat this weekend or if President Biden is going to be persuaded to drop out of the presidential race. So much going on. And then, of course, this morning we wake up and find out that there's this international, what is it, IT situation that's affecting airplanes. And I think we're okay right now, but it gives us a taste of how our lives are so dependent upon technology and what can happen if some chance a mistake happens. But whatever all those things are, and we're developing those stories and more, I can tell you, and I wish I could invite you. We might still have a few seats open, but we, the Washington Informer and Washington Informer Charities, are taking a group of folks to on our annual African American Heritage Tour tomorrow to Tudor House in Georgetown. Now, you all may know a little bit about it, and maybe you don't, but we hope that you'll be able to join us. We love to go to those little known places right here in the nation's capital, in our own communities, to learn more about our own history and culture. So we're leaving from the Ark tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock a.m. We may have a couple more seats on the bus. And if you're interested in joining us and being our guest, I would ask you to send us your name or email us at news@washingtoninformer.com. Do that right away, news@washingtoninformer.com. We certainly would like to have you to join us. We're going to have a continental breakfast. We're going to do a tour of Tudor Place, where they have an exhibit going on right now called Ancestral Spaces. And it's looking at the enslaved, the lives of the enslaved that were held there at Tudor Place, and those who also, helped, like we did with this country, made it what it is today. A beautiful location, and it's really exciting that some of the ancestors of Tudor Place have actually participated in this exhibit. So we look forward, hopefully, for some of them to join us. But if not, we're definitely looking forward for you to join us. So again, email us now at news@washingtoninformer.com. We would love to see you and have you join us on this tour. And also, I'll just say, we also have a jam-packed episode of Let's Talk today. Our first guest is retired pilot Captain Willie Daniels, who is the founder of Shades of Blue, a nonprofit organization that targets underserved Black and Brown youth ages 12 to 21. Captain Daniels has an extensive history in the aviation profession. Looking forward to talking to him because Shades of Blue is hosting a reunion of Black astronauts on the 27th of July. And they're going to be celebrating the history and contributions of early Black astronauts, as well as more accomplishments of African Americans in the field of aviation. And so we're looking forward to talking to him. We're also going to take a look at, I'll say a look backwards, but also where we are today as it relates to the civil rights movement. In addition to the Washington Informer celebrating its 60th anniversary, this is the 60th anniversary of quite a few events, important events that helped to shape America from a civil rights perspective. And Bernice Sims, a veteran of the civil rights movement, is going to be with us today to talk about her experiences, what inspired her to get involved, how she's been able to stay current and active in voting and civil rights in America. And she, along with our reporter, senior reporter, Sam Collins, will be joining us in that conversation just to see where we are today. I don't know how deep we'll get into politics, but I know that for those of you all who watched the Republican National Convention, which ended last night, we thought maybe after the unfortunate episode that nearly took the life of Republican nominee Donald Trump, that we were going to have a sort of an air of a greater air of unity and camaraderie and respect for those who are involved in the political process. After listening to a 93-minute speech, he started off telling us about his story and the unfortunate incident, and said, of course, had it been up to others, he wouldn't have been there last night, but he was there, and he proceeded from that point to be who he is, Donald Trump. So that is going to give us a lot to talk about too, as it relates to where we are in America. Stacey Brown was on not too long ago talking about Project 2025. And so Black America has been here before. Ms. Sims knows about the periods in history that we've come through. And she just may have some great words of advice for where we need to go. And our final segment, we will be talking to 4 talented Washington Informer fellows. We'll hear from Jada Ingleton, DeMarco Bush, Juan Ben Jr., and Harrison Buck, all interns and fellows that have been working with us over the summer here at the Washington Informer. The summer's almost over, and we'll be bidding them farewell, but no, but not all of them. And, just want to talk to them about their experiences, how they got here. So I know some of you all in the listening audience may have students that are on their way to college. And if that's the case, I'm sure they're going to talk about what their college experience has been, how they selected the schools, how they got involved in the internship that they're doing with us here at the Washington Informer and other places, and what the future holds for them. So I'm looking forward to that conversation with Jada and DeMarco, Juan, and Harrison. So having said all that, I hope you picked up a copy of the most recent issue of the Washington Informer. Always like to show you the print edition. Oops, there it is. We've got some great stories here. And speaking of anniversaries, Sam P.K. Collins did a great piece on the 50th anniversary of Nation House, one of our oldest, if not the oldest, African-centered schools in the District of Columbia, and lots of other stories in this edition that you don't want to miss out on. So if you didn't get the print edition, want you to pick up you can always access the digital edition anytime, anywhere by visiting our website at washingtoninformer.com. And there, we hope that you will consider becoming a subscriber. You can sign up. A little thing may pop up at washingtoninformer.com. There you can sign in and get the Washington Informer and all of the daily news. Actually, you'll be signing up for what we call Win Daily, our daily newsletter that goes out every day, every morning, to catch you up on the news from the day before and any late breaking news that we have to share with you. So you can support us by just signing up. It's free. So think about it. We certainly would love to have you. Be sure to share today's broadcast on your social media platforms and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Wherever you are, we are, including that news box right there at the metro stations, because you can find us there as well, or in some of your local places that you like to visit. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well at Washington Informer TV, no spaces, Washington Informer TV. So at this point, let's go ahead and see what Curtis Knowles has to bring us in our news broadcast.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. Construction to build 8 new schools in Prince George's County is expected to begin next month after the County Council passed a resolution Tuesday to approve the funding. The resolution for the public-private project, known as P3, passed Tuesday just a week after it initially failed to get the needed votes. Superintendent Millard House II said the project is needed to address growing student enrollment and outdated buildings. And to accelerate construction, the state will invest more than $800 million while the school system makes payments on the project for 30 years. The 8 schools will replace 14 outdated schools, and while construction is expected to begin next month, the state commission still has to sign off on the deal. Prince George's County native Jamal Harvey grew up a fighter but learned to become a boxer, and now at the age of 21, Harvey is gearing up to compete in the Olympics after winning gold at the 2023 Pan American Games, which will punch his ticket to Paris. It's a moment more than 9 years in the making for Harvey, as when Harvey was around 12 years old, his former football coach started the gym Oxon Hill Boxing and convinced Harvey to give it a try during the offseason. When Harvey got to high school and it came time to dedicate his life to one sport, the choice was clear. Harvey commented on his victory saying, quote, "It meant a lot to me. It was more so being relieved, more so than being happy, just all the stress and stuff, just weight off your shoulders, knowing that I finally accomplished what I set out to accomplish, and I just can't wait to go and seize the moment." A federal appeals court blocked the implementation of the Biden administration's student debt relief plan, which would have lowered monthly payments for millions of borrowers. In a ruling Thursday, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals granted a motion for an administrative stay filed by a group of Republican-led states seeking to invalidate the administration's entire student loan forgiveness program. The court's orders prohibit the administration from implementing the parts of the SAVE plan that were not already blocked by the lower court rulings. The ruling comes the same day that the Biden administration announced another round of student loan forgiveness, this time totaling at $1.2 billion in forgiveness for roughly 35,000 borrowers who are eligible for the program.
Thank you so very much, Curtis. And I am thrilled to bring or introduce you to someone I just recently met, and that is Captain Willie Davis, who is retired from United Airlines, founder of Shades of Blue, and who will be bringing us a great program on the 27th of July here in the DC area, honoring African-American astronauts. Captain Daniels, welcome to Let's Talk.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Barnes. It's a great pleasure to be here and have an opportunity to speak to you and your audience. Thank you.
Oh no, it's really, you know, how often, well, let me put it this way. Whenever I get off an airplane, the first thing I do is to thank the pilot for getting me to my destination safely. But I'm always really proud to see an astronaut, a pilot that looks like me. And first of all, how did you get into the aviation business?
Well, my dream actually started at a very young age, right around 6 or 7 years of age, growing up in Palmdale, California, and moving there from Kansas City over to Palmdale. And my father would take us to air shows and out there in the Southern California area, and that inspired me to want to be a pilot.
I see all those, what are the badges or things behind you? What do those represent?
Those were the first 25 missions of the space shuttle program, starting in 1980 and going all the way up until about 2014, 15, and when the space shuttle program ended. And those were the patches of the first 25 missions. And at the time, I was doing some work out of Ames Research Center associated with NASA, and I started collecting the patches of each one of those missions. And it told a little bit about each of the crew members that were on each one of those missions and their histories.
You know, Shades of Blue is an organization, I guess, that look, when you talk about blue, you're talking about the blue skies, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that name, and what is the organization about?
Well, I used to fly from Los Angeles over to Sydney, Australia, and back. And when we take off out of Sydney on a return trip, it'd be about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're flying to nighttime. And then when you're about 130, 140 degrees west longitude out over the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you look out on the horizon and you see the hints of the sun coming, the approaching terminator. And then as it got a little closer, you can look in the sky and you see the various shades of blue in the atmosphere. And we really like that. And we figured you cannot get to space unless you go through the shades of blue.
Wow. And that's got to be a really unique experience. And you've been able to know some of those astronauts. Can you name them? I know that there are a lot of, well, actually, how many Black astronauts have there been? Let me ask you that question first.
It's about 19 to 20 altogether.
Okay. And that's out of how many, Captain Daniels? What's the total?
Out of about 300 plus astronauts, it's a really, really small group of people who have had an opportunity in our lifetime to have gone into space. And so it's a very small number, especially for African Americans. And if you look at the history, you might have heard of a gentleman by the name of Ed Dwight Jr. He was hand-selected by President John F. Kennedy in 1961 to be the very first African-American astronaut candidate. And unfortunately, after the Kennedy assassination, Captain Dwight was pushed out of the space program.
Wow.
And just recently, in May of this year, after 60 plus years of being out of the program, he got a chance to fly into space on the Blue Origin. And I was fortunate enough to be out at his launch in May of this year to watch him go up to about 347,000 feet up in the atmosphere. It got over to 2,000 miles an hour and went up above the Kármán line, which was officially the designator for space. In addition to him, we have several of our other friends that was the first African-American astronaut to fly in space, which was Dr. Guyon Bluford, who went up in 1983. Then we had Dr. Ron McNair. Unfortunately, he passed away on the Challenger in 1986. Then you had Colonel Frederick Gregory, who became the very first captain or commander of a space shuttle. And then General Charlie Bolden, who was the fourth African-American astronaut. And then the first woman in space, African-American female, Mae Jemison, and then Dr. Bernard Harris. Those are the first few, just to name a few.
You know, I'm calling them NASA's little known secrets because we don't, I mean, it's almost like the hidden figures. We, 19 is not a lot, but most of those names should be household names for us.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of names I do know, most I don't know. And why do you think that's the case, Captain Daniels, that we don't know or aren't celebrating the achievements of these African Americans in the space program?
Unfortunately, many of them were not mentioned very much, and so it's very difficult to see someone who you don't really know and recognize their names and things like that. Now, going back early in the space program, you mentioned the hidden figures. Miss Katherine Johnson, she was one of the original architects of all the algorithms that got us up into space, especially in 1962 when astronaut John Glenn, or actually 1961, when John Glenn was going up in space for the first time on a orbital flight around the Earth. And in order to get them from space back to Earth, he had to use her calculations. They called them human computers at that time. And so at our gala, we're going to have a number of individuals that will be receiving the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for volunteerism. And so we're going to be honoring Ms. Johnson as one of our recipients at that event posthumously. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2020 at the age of 101 years of age.
That's amazing. I mean, and that's exciting that Shades of Blue is taking this opportunity to have this, what you call a Black astronaut reunion,
Mm-hmm.
and to honor these astronauts. Is this the first time that Shades of Blue has had such an event?
This is actually our second event. The first one we held was in 2015. We had 12 of the living African-American astronauts at the time in the house. At the same time, we had 14 astronauts, including Miss Nichelle Nichols, who Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, and Herbert Jefferson Jr., who played Boomer in the Battlestar Galactic series, and Ed Dwight, and Cheryl McNair, who was the wife of Dr. Ron McNair. A number of these individuals will be at our event coming up this week. And it's a huge historic event because many of these people are not household names. because when they go up in space, you never really get a chance to see a lot about what they're doing and what they accomplish, and the goals and that they have done and the things that they have done. Not only better us as a people, but better all mankind.
No, that's it. That's fantastic. And where is this event going to take place?
That's going to be at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum at the Stephen Uvar-Hazy Center in Chantilly, Virginia. The times are 6:30 to 10:30 p.m. And if you want more information, you can find information on my website at ourshadesofblue.org, www.ourshadesofblue.org. If you're interested in purchasing tickets and things like that, you can go on our website and purchase tickets right there on the website. It's a
fantastic.
Huge historical event.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing, I'll just couple things that I also wanted to ask you about. I know that there are opportunities. I know a young man who actually went to space camp down in is it Alabama?
Huntsville, Alabama. That's correct.
Huntsville, Alabama, and is there another one in Texas?
I think there's 2 or 3 around the country. I don't know all of the different locations.
Right. But do you find, and through your experiences, that there are more younger folks who are interested in, what would we call it, aeronautics or
aviation and
aviation?
Yeah, yeah. I think now that the word is starting to get out, I work with a lot of the school districts around the country, and right in your backyard, there's an organization called the Council of the Great City Schools. They're located right there near the White House, and this organization is made up of about 78 major urban areas across the United States. And it's nothing but superintendents and school districts across the nation. And they have roughly about 8 million students under their umbrella. So our goal is to help expose young people of color and get them interested in space and aviation at an early age, so that by the time they come out of high school, they're already primed and ready to go, and get them into the colleges. And then when they come out, our main goal with Shades of Blue, which was started 25 years ago, was to get these young people in the pipeline, mentor them, point them in the right direction, track them all the way through college. And once they come out, then we're in a position to run their resumes right into the HR departments.
Are there, like if a young person is planning to go to college, but is interested, is there like science, technology, what needs to be their strong suit, or does it really matter these days, because they all grew up on what do you call PlayStation? So I'm just
the PlayStation, all that's part of STEAM and STEAMed, which stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And in 2016, NASA added the D on it, which meant design, because they wanted people to think about, if they're going to travel to Mars, they want to be able to visualize and be able to design what their habitats are going to be like, what the spacecrafts are going to be like that's going to get them there, the ingenuity behind the propulsion systems and things like that. So that's very important for young people to understand that, you're looking at the arts, the math, the science, engineering, all of those things that they're studying in school are very, very important when it comes to getting inside of a multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar piece of equipment and traveling into space and coming back home safely.
Wow. Yeah, and the other question I thought you might be able to help me with, Captain Daniels, because I know our former president established something called Space Force, and I actually met a young man who proudly worked for Space Force. What is Space Force?
Well, Space Force is basically a continuation. We've actually had a contingent of the military services working in space for many, many years, well before the Space Force was created back in 2017, I think it was. And Space Force is basically designed to to protect and watch over. We have so much of our technology that's relying on satellites and things like that in space, and with when you have the possibility of having enemies that may be attacking satellites and things like that, you just take a look at today's situation with the technical glitch that happened within the industry, and then all of the airlines were affected and things like that. We are so dependent upon that on our daily lives that we have no idea that these things will affect us. Everything from a cell phone to this computer program that we're doing right now, things like
Right.
that. All of that has to be protected, and that's all based on satellites up in orbit. And we got to watch those, and it's also to protect us from other things that may be out there.
Wow. Well, Captain Daniels, I'm really, really thrilled that you were able to join us today. But I want to mention again the program on July the 27th. We're going to put that back up. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share with us about that, but I know that you are, tickets are available. You're encouraging folks to come. You are going to have, I think, 7 of those astronauts? You plan to have them there. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to have a number. The total number at this point in time, I'm not certain, but we'll have a number of astronauts that have confirmed that will be there. And we are looking at about 8 recipients of the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award, Volunteer Service Award, that will be presented at that event as well. So we have folks coming in. These are other heroes from other educational venues and technical venues that will be receiving that honor for the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Awards.
This is a fantastic. You're retired, from United Airlines?
That's correct. I retired from United after 42 years of service. Originally started out as a flight attendant for about 8.5 years, transitioned into the cockpit where I flew Boeing 727s, DC-10s, 747s, 777s, and then retired off the 787 Dreamliner. And then I've started our foundation about 25 years ago to inspire these young kids, because I realized this is a wonderful career to have, and to have a key. When I like to tell the students when I go into the schools and speak with them, when I came out of college at the age of 22, it was like someone reached in their pocket, pulled out a set of keys, and said, "Here are your keys to the world." And I've been traveling the world ever since.
No, that's amazing. I'm waiting to read your book.
Well, thank you very much. The book came out in February.
Okay.
February of this year, we unveiled it, and it's called Shades of Blue: Creating Space in the Future. And it's primarily about my life and what it took for me. And we hope to market this to the schools as an inspirational read for the students to follow in my footsteps if they want to go down that path and become an airline pilot or astronaut or engineer or mechanic or scientist. These are great opportunities for them to follow in our footsteps and be able to have an opportunity to travel and see the world.
How can we get your book, Captain Daniels?
It's actually on Amazon right now. There's several venues, several locations that you can find it on, but it's on Amazon for $16 a book, so it's pretty not too expensive, and they can go on Amazon and pick it up.
Well, one thing about us here at Let's Talk on WIN TV, once you're a guest, you're part of the family. And so I certainly want you to feel welcome to come back anytime to talk to us more about Space Odyssey, and I mean, even movies, what's real, what's not real. You have so much, I think, that you can share about the industry, and we certainly would love to know more about just kind of what that whole, it's a mystery to me. I look in the clouds, but I don't know what's going on up there, but you have a sense of what's going on up there. So some of our viewers are giving you some great shout outs. They're saying, keep up the great work. And so you have a home here.
Thank you. Just to mention real quick, there's 2 documentaries that was recently released. One was put out through NASA. It's called The Space Race. And the second one was National Geographic, and you can view that on the Disney Channel and Hulu. It's called The Color of Space and the Space Race. The Space Race was put out by National Geographic, and it goes back to the history of Ed Dwight and all of the other African American astronauts that followed in his footsteps. So this is a huge opportunity for people to be educated on African Americans involved in the space program, and then I basically are standing on their shoulders when I went into the airline industry because it's such a complicated industry to get into. But someone that's been there, knows how to get there, we're in a position to help inspire and point people in the right direction to help them achieve their goals as well.
I keep thinking of other questions, and I know we got to go. But when we talk about educational institutions or universities, particularly the HBCUs, is there one or two or any that have specific programs that you all may partner with?
There's a number of HBCUs that have aviation programs right there in near you. It's Delaware State. You have the University of Southern Texas, or SIU, and there's 3 or 4. You have numerous colleges, Emory-Riddle and Mount San Antonio College in California, and Metropolitan State University in Denver. All of these universities, and by the way, they are partner organizations to what we're doing with Shades of Blue, and how we are able to recommend students to continue their education because that's important to get the book knowledge and skill. Because when you get into an airplane and you're traveling through the sky at 600 miles an hour, things are happening pretty fast. So if you got that book knowledge in mind, the other things come naturally and easy.
Well, I hope they do have that book knowledge, because I'll be on a long flight in a little while. I make sure that they got the book knowledge. Prepare for everything that happens.
I understand you're going to be taking a fantastic trip, and I used to fly down to Australia. I would do about 6 trips in a matter of a couple of weeks, back and forth down to Australia.
Wow.
Going down that far, you're traveling from Colorado, which is where I am, down to Australia is about 7,500 miles one way. And so you're looking at mostly water, but you're going to be traveling all the way down to Madagascar, is what I understand.
That's right.
Those are some fantastic lifetime opportunities. So I say congratulations on that, and have a wonderful time while you're there.
Well, thank you so much. And while I'm awake, during those waking hours, I'll think about you. I hope to be asleep most of the time, though. But I will think about you. Captain Daniels, thank you so very much for being with us, for sharing this great, all the great work that you and so many others are doing, and this great program next Saturday, July 27th. We will encourage folks to be there, and we hope to be there ourselves to cover it.
Well, thank you very much. And it's an honor to be here with you and your guest today.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. That was great. Now, I've had an opportunity to meet Mae Jemison, and I think I knew McNair, the astronaut herself, his brother. Didn't get a chance, of course, to meet him, and unfortunately, he died in that space flight. But just to be able to talk to some Black astronauts is just amazing. But even a man that's done all that flying is amazing. I mean, we have so many stories to share, and that's why I'm really excited to even bring on our next guest, Bernice Sims, who will be speaking with me and Sam Collins, because her life story is entangled with so many names that we know: Medgar Evers, James Chaney, Michael Schwerner, and Andrew Goodman, Dr. Martin Luther King, so many others. Ms. Sims, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here and among such illustrious guests. My goodness.
Oh, our pleasure. And Sam P.K. Collins is here to, we're in a time frame right now, as you know, where one, we're trying to get young people out to vote, and just the whole evolution of the civil rights movement, all the things that where we are today, sort of building on the work of the generations past. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into this movement as a young person.
Well, my involvement with the civil rights movement started with being a youth member of the NAACP. My mentor was from Meridian, Mississippi. He was a photographer, and he also was a salesperson for students' rings and graduation pictures. But that was a kind of a front for what he really was doing. He was the assistant, the co-leader of the Mississippi State NAACP under the leadership of Medgar Evers. So that was my first involvement with the NAACP and early activism through his mentorship.
Interesting. And Sam, you can jump in anytime. As I told you earlier before the show started, I just finished listening to the story of Medgar and Merrily, written by I just got brain freeze, but Joy Reid. Wonderful, wonderful story. Learned so much about Medgar Evers and that whole movement and how dangerous it was. Now, were you I assume you were living in Mississippi at the time, correct?
Yes, I was born and raised in Meridian, my formative years in Meridian, Mississippi, which is about 90 miles from Jackson, where Medgar Evers lived. And so we were actually, the youth in Meridian was involved, worked with the youth in Jackson that was under the mentorship of Medgar Evers. In addition to all the other things he was doing, he was at that time, he was the state field, they were referred to as the field secretary for the NAACP. And as I said, his co-leader was Charles Darden, who was my mentor in Meridian. So we had the Meridian and the Jackson coalition with young people that became involved with early activism, which meant we were operating under the nonviolence protocol, that of Dr. Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. We were told that we are here to those beliefs of nonviolent protest. We picketed one of the issues that in 1963, Medgar Evers was very much involved in. Of course, after he spent time in the war. He was in the Second World War, went over and fought and for the country, and he came back to Jackson, and he found that, in terms of the jobs, the public service jobs, like the telephone companies, the electric companies, we were utilizing those services and they had no employees. So it was a way, first of all, the part of the focus was trying to get people hired. And of course, at that time, there were many 5s and 10s, some of them you probably never heard of, Crest Store, Woolworths, and we were trying to get people hired. So one of the things we would do, we would quietly carry picket signs outside the store. We were involved in boycott. We had a specific date. We referred to it as D-Day, that we got together and we picketed those stores and boycotted and encouraged the community to boycott and not utilize the stores because they were not hiring us. And it was we were also under influence of Rosa Parks, and we knew what happened in Montgomery with the bus boycott. So we had those kind of stories and those references as a way of operating. So that was my involvement with Medgar Evers. Just a few months actually before he was, this was in 1963 when I got involved. He was, of course, he was murdered in his doorway, slaying down, coming from a rally on actually June the 12th, 1963. And I had been in his home a few weeks, I would say a few weeks, few months before he was assassinated.
Awesome history. And, just want to say it's a pleasure getting the chance to interview you, Ms. Sims. If you can just reflect on the lessons that you as a young person learned from Medgar Evers and the other organizers of that time. What was it like just being under their tutelage, and what kind of information did you get from them?
Well, of course, we knew something of their history. I knew something about his involvement in the service. I knew about the work that he was doing in Jackson and what he was trying to do. All of our other tutelage was well respected in terms of the work. We understood very clearly the role of the NAACP and how we needed to operate. And also, he was the type of person that, didn't really take no for an answer. He felt as though, there was good trouble, as, our former Lewis talks about good trouble. We were not deterred by, various obstacles. We would try one thing and we would try another. This was kind of the way we operated. And I guess too, being young, adolescents, we were adolescents, and they, basically adolescents take a lot of risks, especially if you have a cohesive group around you. We had many meetings before we went out in the field, we call it, to perform missions, whether it was to picket, boycott, or whatever. We had meetings before. Usually they were after Sundays. We met in a church, and it was after Sunday school or BTU, and we talked about our plans and what we would do and how we would react. We kind of knew what we were doing. We knew the beginning, the middle, and the end. We didn't always know how things were going to end, but we had a very clear mission about what we were doing and why we were doing it. Because we were also the group that I was involved with. There was about 12 of us. James Chaney, I call him J.E., being one of them. He was one of the martyrs, of course, that was murdered on June 21st, 1964, along with Swerner and Goodman. We were the kind of kids where most of us were pretty good students, and we were very this was also enforced to us. We were very, I would say, we were very involved, very much involved early on in our political well-being, because I think it had a lot to do with we had civic classes in junior high school, and it was reinforced by history and government. And we basically felt as though all of the things that we had learned about this country that we were entitled to, started with pieces of the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, we hold these truths, be self-evident, the thing about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We thought we were entitled to all of those things. We had songs that reinforced it. We had poems, America for Me by Henry Van Dyke. We were influenced by all of those things that made, that we consider part of our democracy that we had fought for. And we knew that Medgar Evers, for instance, had fought and almost lost his life for those ideals. And we knew that this country was based upon ideals, democratic ideals that were fair and reasonable for all humans. So we believed in that. We were tested on it. We were challenged ourselves by learning parts of the Declaration of Independence, the Gettysburg Address, and it was also tied into our religious beliefs. So
you're bringing up quite a lot, and I think it's very interesting. I wanted to fast forward to the present day, given what's coming up in November. What are your thoughts about the current state of affairs, given that at the state level, voting rights protections have been chipped away over the last few years, and we also have a growing non-party voter population or a growing non-voting population? Just from your standpoint, what are we looking at as far as the landscape this November? What's at stake for us?
Well, what's at stake for us is our very own lives. I was always taught that your vote is your voice. Without the vote, you have no voice. If you look into communities, the people that don't vote, look at the communities, look at what they have and they don't have. Look at the communities where people vote, and you're recognized. I think it looks in many ways very dim, what we have to look forward to. I didn't think that when I was going out and knocking on doors back in the 60s, and we were able to see that the Voting Rights Act passed, I didn't know then that it had a shelf life of 25 years, that we would have to be doing this again. The same thing, I want to go, same thing with women's rights. I had no idea that these things had a shelf life at all. If someone had told me that, I might have reacted even differently from the standpoint of trying to influence my peers and everyone else, that just, you have to keep running. There's no such thing as stopping and relaxing and feeling as though, because I had to go through this, I'm going to not tell my child or my younger generations, because I don't want them to feel bad that, I don't want to tell them about all the ugly things that happened to me. I would have continued to talk about those ugly things and continually to educate them about them, because as we see, nothing is promised. There is no guarantee. You can make 5 steps forward and you can go backwards. You're trying to get to 10 and you could go back to 2 and start all over again. We cannot take anything for granted. All the things that we fought for, it has to be a continuum. And as you said, looking forward to, it's very disheartening to think that young people our lives could be lost. The one that we knew, the one that I knew, the one that if they talked to their relatives that fought for, when it was in the Second World War, we were over there fighting. Those that died, what did they die for? It's very disheartening to knowing that, and if they would sit down and talk to their parents about who they lost in their families and what did they die for, what were they fighting for over in Europe, for this different way of life, it's very disheartening to know that they would be sitting on their sofas and not go out. And I think that this apathy is the thing that's going to kill us and destroy us. You go out.
How do we convey that message to young people? And I'm speaking because young people, millennials and Gen Zers, they're coming up in a time where there's Black leadership, at all states, at all levels of government. We arguably have a bit more voting power than we did at some point in time. And yet for a lot of them, the conditions have not changed. And we hear a lot of young people, they're looking at the two candidates for office as the same, even though there might be stark differences between them. How do we convey this message to young people, given what they're seeing before their own very eyes?
Well, the thing is, ask them if they want to be free, or do they want to go back? Do they want to be free and live? Their way of life is very much being threatened. Things that they take for granted, it would be threatened. They just, I think what has to happen, I believe, it has to be a continuing of going into the schools and talking about things in very specific terms. They hear things about civic involvement. When I took it, this is how you learn to be a good citizen. Everybody. And I was reading that they don't teach civics anymore. You learn about what has happened, your place and your responsibility. They need to know that when they hear democracy, a lot of people, they confuse democracy with democratic. They have a lot of terms that they don't really know. They need to be broken down in such a way, in palatable pieces where they understand it. This has to go on in the schools all the time. I participate every now and then. They invite me during Black History Month and different things to come in. They have Civil Rights Day. They have a day. It's almost like having February being Black History Month. We have a month. This thing has to be taught and reinforced on a weekly, if not a monthly, if not weekly, at least a monthly basis. Young people need to know who died in their family, why they died, and for what, and do you want to lose that? If you lose your sense of democracy, you might not be, just the freedom to go to buy certain products. You might not be able, you might have a particular day that you can go and buy food. That can be taken away from you. The fact, looking at what has happened now with the voting right, look how that's been stripped away. They've shortened the days. They have inhumane things like if people stand online for the long time, they can't have water and food. They're doing it now. It's happening now. Though the freedom to go and vote, we used to have on Sundays, they had a name for it, they call, and they left the churches. They got rid of that Sunday, leaving the church on Sundays and going to the voting booth. They cut a lot of that out. Look around and see what's cut out. We had to count the jelly beans and be able to recite various portions of the Constitution, the state Constitution, that learned scholars could not do in order to vote. We had to pay a poll tax. A lot of people didn't have any money to pay that. We were able to vote if they had a grandfather clause that said only if your grandfather voted. Our grandfathers were slaves. How could they vote? Look at what they're doing now on the voting roll. Look at what they're doing, how they cut back. Look what states have done. It's happening now. Somehow they need to have a TikTok or a visual, something that would impress young people. Look at what you lost, what you don't have. Look what was and now. We don't have the water hose, but we have shorter days. That's been those are freedoms. All of those things, those are freedoms that's been taken away, that we took for granted, that was going to be here forever. And I won't even go into, look at what happened with, Roe versus Wade. We thought at that time that women will have the right to choose. All of that there's a pushback. We don't have an active Supreme Court. We don't have Thurgood Marshalls in black, like I had when I was coming up, who fought for things that based on the Constitution that was for the betterment of man. You have people now who are, our Supreme Court justices are partisan. Look at what we lost.
To your point, I'm of the opinion, and I'm not necessarily taking off my journalist hat, just more so making an observation. I think that in the post-civil rights era, a lot of that fervor for grassroots organizations sort of dissipated when we had a lot of elected officials. And it seems that in speaking with young people, and I would say the generation over me, Generation X, with the installment of Black elected officials, there sort of came a dependence on them to affect change rather than us in the grassroots organizing and pushing for that change. And we sort of saw that with the Obama administration as well. And people who oftentimes, going back to my time, of course, as a college student, voting for Obama, whatever the case was, you had two camps: those who didn't want to blame Obama and those who were very critical of Obama. But looking back now, at 34 years of age, I'm thinking that the onus was on the voters and the organizers to push for that change. So as far as getting that grassroots feedback, and I'm talking on and on, I'm coming with my question, forgive me, but I just wanted to get a sense of, what are your thoughts as far as us expanding our definition of civic engagement? I feel that oftentimes we get too bogged down in the ballot box. How do we make it known that civic engagement is a year-round thing that goes beyond? In addition to the ballot box, it should be attending meetings. It should be organizing in neighborhoods. It should be being neighborly toward one another. How do we get back to that? How do we emphasize that with young people?
You're going to have to start teaching early. You're going to have to start teaching them early what all of these things really mean. You do. And as far as them being out there and civically involved, they're out there. I see the energy. But it's based upon it's situational. When Audrey, when we'd lost all of these, we saw all of our Black people get killed, number of them. We can go off Joanne Bland. They were out there. The energy is there. What sustained the energy? What's going to sustain that kind of energy? I mean, a murder, seeing somebody get their life get snuffed out of them on TV. It has to be continue. We have to go into the schools and start early and teach them all the time. You have to be relentless. This is one of the things that I see. They need another palate. The young people need a palate cleaner. What a palate cleaner is a food that you take on that food, so you will be able to, you put that in your mouth, so you'll be able to taste something else, prepare yourself for another kind of taste of food. They need a palate cleaner, and it will involve the things that you mentioned. It's going to require more education early and continuously, and it cannot be stopped. And we cannot depend upon just our leaders itself. It has to be, everyone has to decide that they want to live, or they want to die, or they want to go back to the cotton patches.
Ms. Sims, and I have to apologize. Everything went out on me a little while ago, so I lost you all, or you all lost me. But and I know our time is of the essence right now. But one of the things that I'm observing, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and a couple of other groups now are returning to Children's Defense Fund, returning to what I think you all did back in the day, which was these freedom schools. Because what was happening in the classroom was not necessarily the kind of education, or that, as you called it, that civic engagement, was not happening. So they had freedom schools in churches and different places and communities, which I would love to see happen again, because people don't want us teaching our kids certain things in these schools in cities across the country, particularly I'll name Florida specifically, and Texas might be another. So we do have to take this education that you speak of and civic engagement into our own hands and go back to what worked in the past.
I agree entirely, because that's where a lot of the young people got it. It was in the freedom schools. And my last count, there are a few. I don't know if they have that many, but that's one of the places that they can get them. Stony Brook University, I think, on Long Island, was one of the first ones to have get a freedom school in the state. I think there are more now. They've been doing it now. They're probably in their 10th year. But when I went to speak with them a few years ago, they had been operating about 3 to 4 years. That's an ideal way. That's where you're going to get that's the new kind of education, and we're going to have to take advantage of doing it ourselves again. And the freedom school is an excellent, excellent way, because those kids in the freedom schools, when they found out what they were entitled to, they went out, they fought, and they still know they knew their rights, they knew everything. So it has to be spelled out to them in manageable pieces. And you can do that. I said, start with the younger people, and the freedom schools is an excellent opportunity to have that take place.
I'm going to tell Patrice Lancaster, yes, there is a curriculum. And maybe one day we can do a show on the editor who's created a curriculum that's being used in the freedom schools. I think there are 4 in Florida. And it's an excellent, excellent grade level curriculum, starting with kindergarten through high school, through 12th grade. So we're going to have to sign off now. I'm really so happy that you were able to be with us. Sam, did you have something you wanted to wrap up with? We're kind of at that hour. And I want to get our fellows in here.
I just wanted to express my thanks for the opportunity. And I know I can't quite dig into this, but I do want to see a world where the elders and the young folk are speaking again and are really taking in knowledge, and both sides are speaking and listening with open ears and open minds and open hearts, because there are some things that the other side might not want to hear from the other side, but it's all valid. So if we can get to that common understanding, maybe even through the freedom schools, then by all means, I'm with it.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent idea.
Ms. Sims, thank you so very much for being with us, for sharing your history. Now, Captain Williams surprised me when I asked him about his book, and we had it. Do you have one?
Yes, I do. I wrote. It took a long time. It was 50 years. I wrote my memoirs, Detour Before Midnight. It was Freedom Summer Workers, James Chaney, Michael Swarner, and Andrew Goodman made an unscheduled stop. I had worked with them as well. After Medgar Evers, of course, they were my colleagues. I just met Andrew Goodman. He had just come down. And they were on their way to investigate the burning of the church that was supposed to be used for Freedom School and the community center. And they were on their way there, and they came by to get my brother or myself. I volunteered to go in my brother's place, and they told me no. And it's a good thing I did, because it probably would have been 4 or 5 people murdered. They were all murdered on June 21st, 1964. And I wrote the book, Detour Before Midnight, and it was a memoir form, but I have redone a new manuscript. I've revised it because one of the things that I found to do, I made references. I had a way of making references to certain things, but it's more detailed. Like what I'm saying is in more manageable pieces. That's what we have to do with the young people and the older people, because in the Freedom School also, we worked together with the older people. I taught literacy. I would get out of school and we taught them to read and write their names, because that way they can under Fannie Lou Hamer's program, they were able to write their names for Freedom Vote. And when she went to in August of 1964, went to Fannie Lou Hamer, tried to go and outseat the regular delegates, all those Freedom Votes that we collected from the people who were illiterate at first, they had that impetus. We worked together with the older people. They were able to stand. They didn't get seated the way they wanted to, but we were proud of the work that we had done, and we had gone out and got those votes. People could only mark the X, but when the Freedom School opened up, we had all kinds of incentive for them to come to the Freedom School. We gave out fabric, we gave kids toys and games and a lot of things that Black history was taught, languages. And that way they came and they were able to write their name, and they had those names. When she went to Atlantic City in August of 64, they had the name of those people because we taught literacy in the Freedom School. So whatever is needed in the Freedom School to help our people bind together and get what we need to move forward cohesively, young and old, we tried to do that in the Freedom School. We need them again.
Thank you so very much. And the book, is your book available
it's
on
available,
Amazon as well?
It's available now on Amazon, and like the astronaut, it's only $16. It's in paperback, but
Okay.
it's on Amazon for $16. But I have redone the manuscript, and it will be coming out in hardback. But
Wonderful.
It's still available.
Okay, good. I'm glad you shared that with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Collins. Please feel free to be in touch with me.
No doubt, sooner than later. We're going to work it out.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Sims, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thanks, Sam. Sam, hold on. Okay. All righty. Thank you. Wow, amazing conversation. I'm really glad that you were here, since I lost, connection. And I mean, just quickly, as we bring on our fellows, I want them to come in right now. I just wanted you to be a part of this conversation as well. But what did you get from that?
I mean, Sam? I think there's a lot of opportunity for intergenerational conversations, and like I said, if both sides can listen to one another with open minds and hearts, then we can definitely make things a go. But I really love how Ms. Sims got into the Fannie Lou Hamer delegate situation. I wish we'd have had more time to talk about that. I definitely got some thoughts about that. I think that had it gone the other way, you would have seen more young people today more involved in the process, the electoral process.
Wow, wonderful. I mean, that's when you talk about, the conversation, now we're going in the other direction. So you're kind of in the middle here. And I just want to welcome our guests, DeMarco Rush, Juan Ben, Jada Ingleton, and Harrison. Why did I get, I'm having brain freeze. Harrison Buck. Yes, welcome you all. You know how y'all know me, right? I forget. But welcome, folks. I'm glad you all were able to kind of stay on. And any feedback before we get into who you are and what the internship has been about? Any feedback from the conversation that we had just now, or the one prior to that?
I mean, it's been a great show so far. Listening to both of your guests that you've had on prior, it just makes me think a lot about what she was saying, having the conversation about, thinking about all the things that we're losing today, and how all of our rights and the things that we take for granted in this country, they're not promised to us, and they can be taken away just like that. And when you actually think about and set the present in a historical context of these are things that we fought for, and this is how it's actively being taken away from us. It just shows you the importance of why we need to be participating in our local politics and in civics and having these conversations and being engaged in the news. So it was a great conversation and it's very, very inspiring.
Wonderful. So what I'll do right now, and Sam, I'm holding you, but I know you didn't expect to be on this long. So if you have to jump off, I mean, we understand. But I'd like to go around and just have each one of you all introduce yourselves, introduce yourself, tell us, what school you went to, you're going to, why you decided to pursue journalism, and let's try to give the soundbite answer. DeMarco, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. My name is DeMarco Rush, and I actually just graduated from Penn State this past May. And I'll say how I got into journalism. So when I was going into college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I used to watch like sport, ESPN and sports all the time. And I really watched like Stephen A. Smith, people like that. And I was like, oh, I want to be a sports broadcaster, talk about sports. And I actually went to college to play basketball. And I just knew I was good at writing. So I was like, okay, I'll do communications. And then I transferred to Penn State's main campus the next 2 years. And then I realized I actually liked the journalism. I had a gift at writing and creating things. So I kind of went down that path. And then, that's a little intro about me.
And you got to us through the Maryland, Delaware, DC Press Association, correct?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how I came across the internship. So at Penn State, me and three of my other peers, we had started the NABJ Penn State chapter, and
that's the National Association of Black Journalists, right?
Yep.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And one of my professors, he was saying if anyone is from DC, Maryland, Virginia area, we have potential internship that you should apply for. And so I was like, oh, I'm from that area, and I didn't have anything lined up yet. So, and went through all the process, and then they said, oh, you're going to be at the Washington Informer this summer. So then, then the rest speaks for itself.
Great. Harrison?
Hello, everybody. I'm Harrison Buck. I'm a rising senior at Morehouse College. And I think, I'll just talk about how I got into journalism. I would say I've always been into storytelling, just from a young age. I've always been into just telling stories. I've always been into creative writing. And then I would say that I kind of merged that with my interest in sports from a young age. But I would say, I kind of merged that with sports from a young age. And I would say that kind of.
Okay, we lost Harrison for a minute. Jada, jump in.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jada Ingleton. I am a fellow with Comcast Digital Equity Local Voices Lab through the Washington Informer. So I basically got started with journalism actually from a creative writing standpoint. I've always been really into, storytelling, coming up with my own kind of content and plots and stuff. And it wasn't until I went to high school and I took an intro to journalism class, and my teacher saw the connection and realized that, I was also deeply passionate about storytelling on a reporting standpoint, not just, imaginative or creative. So she really, throughout my entire experience with journalism, I've had a lot of, instructors or professors who've always kind of pushed and guided and helped me realize all the potential that there is within the field and the different things that you can get into and do with it. So honestly, I've just always loved storytelling. And once I started learning more about, what it takes to practice actual journalism and news reporting, it got intensified, really, seeing that there's so many things that people don't know about or don't talk about that we as journalists have the resources and the capability to share. So for me, that's pretty much my intro. And now I'm working more so in the Black press, which has only made my passion bigger, I would say. So That's my intro.
And also give a shout out to where you're from, because I didn't get a chance to hear that. I know DeMarco, you said you were from the area. Jada, where are you from?
So I'm originally from South Florida. I am a recent graduate of Howard University. Got a bachelor's in journalism and minored in psychology.
All right. And Harrison?
Yeah, I'm back
coming
now.
to you, Juan. Yeah.
But so I merged my interest with creative writing and storytelling with sports, and that's kind of how I got into wanting to be a sports journalist. So I would just say that, that's kind of how I merged that interest. But I would say that being at the Informer has definitely shown me that I can cover a lot more than sports. I've gotten to cover things at City Council. Me and Juan did that story on the 4th of July, and Black Washingtonians' perspective on it. And then also got to cover people's view on the debate, the presidential debate. So it's definitely been a great experience just getting to cover things that, I might not have covered had I not been at the Informer. So it's been a great experience.
And you're from the area too, right?
Yeah, I'm from Bowie, Maryland.
All right. Okay. And Juan, Ben, Jr.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Juan. I'm a senior journalism major at Howard University, and I'm working with the Washington Informer as a Chevrolet Discover the Unexpected Fellow. And so, you wanted to know how we got into journalism. I started journalism in high school. I joined our advanced journalism class and was doing on-camera stuff. We were visual journalists, so we were making videos, and I was doing on-camera work as one of the hosts, but also editing and doing all that kind of stuff. And then when I got to college, I started writing for the different publications on campus, including the Hilltop, which is where I now serve as the managing editor. And so I'll be managing editor for the fall semester this year before I graduate. That's like the short, sweet summary of why I got into journalism, or how I got into journalism. I think at the core of why is that, I'm a storyteller at heart, like everyone said. I'm just passionate about bringing stories to life. And since studying journalism at Howard, I've just come to understand and appreciate how journalism is a service. And that just makes me even more passionate about doing this work because it's necessary and important work. And it's very fulfilling. And I'm just super honored to just be a part of news and bringing information to people.
And you hail from what? Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yes.
All right. Now, Sam and I had this conversation yesterday, and I wanted to bring it to you all because, Sam is an award-winning journalist here at the Washington Informer, and he's really a hard news reporter. Our senior reporter, really focused on issues that make a difference in the lives of DC residents, and particularly those who may consider themselves voiceless. We think everybody has a voice. We're just here to amplify those voices. But Sam, I want you to jump in because I want you to kind of really talk or get from our interns what you think or how serious you think this business is, and I have another question later, but inviting you to jump in.
No doubt, and I really do appreciate the opportunity. I like the intergenerational transfer here. 12 years ago, I was right where you are right now, so I really implore y'all to take everything you can out of it, accept every challenge, take on as many assignments as possible, and really do your best to turn in that copy on time or before time, and just take corrections. As far as where we are in a critical juncture in journalism, and it's very imperative that the Black press continues to do what it does in terms of just amplifying the voices of our communities and being at the forefront of the issues, the more serious issues especially. And as young journalists, I also implore y'all, just as I have, to really find your voice and learn more about yourselves, because when you learn about yourself, who you are spiritually, politically, you get a sense of where you can tap in as far as getting your voices and as far as amplifying certain voices. So, the Informer was where I really got a lot of my grassroots journalist journalism experience, just really being out into the community and really doing everything possible. With that being said, I really do want to open the floor and just get a sense of where you guys, see this opportunity taking y'all in terms of your careers. Really interested in that, and I think the audience is too.
I guess I'll start. Well, with the Informer this summer, I feel like it was kind of like I look at journalism like a jungle, and it was like I was thrown into this jungle of like, you have to cover things you never covered before. You got to talk to people. You got to just be comfortable just walking up to people and being like, hey, we're trying to do this. So I think also with like journalism skills, the Informer has definitely sharpened my skills, but like just overall life skills too, like being able to talk to people, having confidence to, talk and call people, or just like having work ethic, like being able to email somebody even if they're not responding, and like getting that interview because you have a deadline. So I think with this experience, I think it just taught me how to be a professional and how to carry myself. So I think whatever I end up doing, I think the things that I learned from here will help me no matter what.
Yeah, the cold call, that's the best kind of call. Fall, go ahead, Jada.
So I was just going to say, for me, I'm a fellow with the Digital Equity Local Voices Lab, but I started as a copy editing intern with the Informer during my last semester at Howard. And throughout, maybe at this point about 7 months that I've been with the publication, I've been able to work on not just copy editing, but also improve my writing through editing, and also working on weekly assignments. And to DeMarco's point, you just really get to learn a little bit more about how to, especially coming from someone who wasn't in the DMV originally, you learn more about the different people you can talk to, the different opportunities that are around for a story. Sometimes one thing leads to other questions that are like, okay, well, what is this about? Or has anyone asked this? Or what does that mean? So working with the Informer, having this fellowship has allowed me to also think about writing in a different perspective and try new beats. My beat right now is specifically advancing digital equity in the Black community, which is something that I didn't write about in college very much. So I'm already kind of challenging myself. And throughout the entire time I've been with the Informer, everything has always been like challenging me, pushing me to learn more about the Black community, how we can help, what's missing, what needs to be done. And so I think I just learned how to think outside the box, learn how to look for stories in different places, learn how to recognize a story where other people might just see, a fact or something that they've normalized in the community. But as a journalist, as a Black journalist especially, it's like, okay, well, no, this could be something deeper. So my experience has only helped me to elevate my thought process when it comes to writing and especially editing. And I think in the future, I will take pretty much everything that I've learned and apply it to future publications, hopefully one day my own publication, and things like that.
Awesome.
If I can, I want to jump in here, Sam, because the one thing that bothered me, and I think you all heard me talk about this yesterday, watching the Republican National Convention, and I realized it was Senate candidate Carrie Lake, and I'm shouting her out because I was just so disgusted by her comments. But I want to know what you all think. Our former president has labeled media, no exceptions, with the exception of his own social media page, but has labeled the media the fake media, right? The distrustful, lying, fake media. At the same time, we're seeing more young people like yourselves, entering into the field of journalism and working in the media. How does that make you feel, though, when you hear this sort of distrust or animosity towards the press, recognizing, well, I'll just leave it there. How do you feel when you hear those comments?
I can jump in here real quick. To me, it makes me feel, honestly, it kind of encourages me, because it just makes me realize just how important this work really is and how important journalism is. If we have a presidential candidate and a whole group of people behind them, trying to make an argument that this is something bad for us, right? That media and informative news and all this kind of stuff is something bad, that makes me kind of think like, why would they want to take this away from us? And so for me, it just motivates me to want to do this work, to continue to hold power to account, to continue giving and amplifying a voice to those who may feel like they have no voice. It just encourages me. I think the layoffs in media over the past year and a half has been a little more discouraging to me about, you know, the workforce and the industry that we're getting into. But hearing the president and or the former president and how people are talking about the media just makes me realize just how important this is. It makes me realize that we have an opportunity to potentially change some people's minds about the media. You know, yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about.
Fantastic. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I would just add, I think at the end of the day, journalists, we just report facts. You know, we look for the stories. We may find deeper details, and we're going to go out to different sources that other people haven't thought of, but we're telling stories that are out there based off facts, things that are important, things that the community needs to know. And I think being threatened by journalists, in a sense, is just being threatened by the truth. And, you know, we're going to report what we report. And if it like, you know, you just kind of had to understand sometimes things aren't going to sound as great. It's not going to always make whoever you are as a person in the best light, whatever you're trying to portray, because if that's not what you're really doing, that's not what you're doing. And our job is to make sure that people have a voice, that people know that what's going on with them and how it affects them matters. And it's not just about a certain group of people or a certain class of people. It's about everyone and how they're affected by what's happening in the world. So it definitely, to Juan's point, you know, we need journalism. It's so important, especially now more than ever. We need people who are willing to go out there and find out what's going on and tell the truth, especially in a world where a lot of people get their news from social media. And that isn't always accurate, just because people will read something on a tweet and think it happened. And it's like, that's not the truth. So we need real storytellers who know the backbone of how to get down to the facts.
And that's a question I want to follow up with Harrison. You know, folks say young folks don't read. They don't read newspapers, right? They're not really going to websites. They're getting their news from social media. That's a challenge for media right now. How do we keep our communities informed when all they want to read is 140 characters or a video? What should either, and I'm not saying, what should media be doing, particularly Black press, be doing to make sure that we are reaching your peers?
I would just say we need to be adaptable. I mean, I think that's like the most important thing. You know, you just have to move with the times. I mean, you know, today, especially like, you know, Gen Z and like people my, like, you know, just the young folk, like they're really used to just getting their information in like in a quick vacuum, and they're just, you know, they want the quick news. And I think, you know, I think that's just what we have to do. As I think that's just our job at Gen Z, being in the media and like just aspiring Black journalists. I think that's just our job, to move with the times and just enhance it and be creative and just tell stories in our own way. And yeah, I think that's just the most important thing, is just being adaptable and not stressing yourself to just, you know, follow an agenda. I think the important thing is just putting your own spin on the way you want to tell stories. So yeah.
Sam, do you find that as a challenge? Because you're a story. When you talk about storytellers, your stories are stories. I mean, you go into real deep detail, and people need to sit down and take a moment to consume some of the kind of content that you produce. But does it concern you that, you know, folks might just want to read that first sentence or that headline and move on?
It does concern me, and it speaks to why I have taken on the role as an educator over the last few years, just because from my vantage point, it's an issue that shows up in the schools and in how young people are being taught or not being taught. So in addition to being a journalist, I do my best as an educator to increase reading fluency and reading stamina so that young people are learning how to sit down with the text and read it once, twice, 3 times before they get it. And it's a skill that is quickly eroding. Shout out to social media, because I saw something on there not too long ago that said something along the lines of within a generation or so, reading will be like a hidden language. It'll be something that's relegated only to like a small number of us, just like other things are right now. And that's where we're headed. And sometimes I lament the fact that the people for whom I'm writing these articles may not even have the stamina to read them. And that's just a sad reality. But, I'm not one to, to fall back. I came up under some old school heavy hitters, and they love the long articles because we got to challenge our people to read long articles. But I am very open to multimodal ways of conveying the news. So if it is a long article, I throw a few pictures in there to break it up a little bit, or I might have some video to accompany it. I might post a few tidbits via social media, but I do want to see a world where we mold the old and the new together, because I think that, both elements can benefit from one another. I really encourage Gen Z to, hold tight to some of the old school elements. They're there for a reason, but at the same time, I encourage Gen X and the millennials to some extent to, bring on some of the new ways. So I'll keep it there.
Well, one of the things I've liked has been the collaborations. And I think I've seen a little bit of that among you. Isn't that the case? Have you all collaborated on any stories?
Yeah, so me and Juan, we're working on this one story on DC statehood, and we were downtown. We met up near the monument and the Black History Museum, and it was like 100 degrees outside. We're setting up the camera. I'm Juan, he's helping with the mic. We're like, okay, should I come in this way? And then we get that done, and then we're like, now I don't want to say we're running people down, but we're jogging to them, like, hey, do you guys want to be part of this video? And we got a lot more no's than we did yeses, but the yeses we got, it was like, okay, like, this works. We got something for our story. So yeah, shout out to Juan, because definitely wouldn't have happened without him being there, for sure.
No, that's great. That's great. I didn't know if you had done a collaboration, Sam, but I know you did one with Kayla when she was here with us. Kind of where a more seasoned journalism and a journalist and a younger journalist work together on stories, and that's what we want to see more of that happening here. Because go ahead.
I do want to shout out Juan. Juan and I have spoken, briefly about a story that he's working on. I'm very excited about it. I'll let him talk about it when the time comes, but he's on to something that's very crucial, and I'll tell him, like I tell anybody else, you really want to get that human element in there, because it makes the legislation that you're talking about come alive. So, I've been blessed to be born and raised in this city. So I've seen, just being a young person, seeing certain places that I shouldn't have been at, just being young, but that has really informed my journalism in the sense that I feel that I can go anywhere within reason and talk to people. And, Juan and I talked about that today. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of his reporting.
Wonderful. Well, anybody else have anything to add before we sign off? I know that our program went really long today, but I thought it was exciting to do this. Does anybody have an announcement of any upcoming shows that folks need to check out next week or the week after?
Well, next week, us interns, we will be running, not just next week, but the next 2 weeks, we'll be, running all aspects of the show. So next week, when you tune in, it won't be Miss Denise, it'll be us. So yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited. That's great. Any previews of what to expect? Any story previews? Topics?
Well, you're definitely going to get a chance to meet more of the DTU fellows and hear more about the work that the Informer has been doing with us young Black emerging interns, or journalists rather.
Journalists, right.
A lot of things going on that we've all been working on, individual projects that we've only been able to enhance throughout this summer and our time working together. So you're going to get a nice full group assessment of how that's been.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited. I don't know about you, Sam, but I'm excited. I look forward to what you all come up with. I know it's going to be great because you all have experience. You're not novices at this, and I think our viewers are going to enjoy it as well. I think the concern that some of us may have voiced about, where journalism, where media is going. I look between you all. This has been one of the best summers we've had here at the Washington Informer. You all have just been outstanding, I think, not only in the work that you do, but your passion for the work. And that's what we look forward to seeing and enjoy and look for is the passion. So I'm going to let you go because I know you got things to do today. But thank you all for being a part of Let's Talk. We're going to submit this. We're going to win awards on this show. Okay, well, maybe not, but at any rate.
Oh, now, without question. Thank
you for having us, Miss Denise, and it was so great always talking to you as well, Sam.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good one. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
You as well.
See you next week.
All righty. Okay. So, Sam,